in the NBA. Let me run the floor, and we start with this. The Celtics star guard Jalen Brown has a torn ligament in his left wrist. He's going to miss the remainder of the season. He was diagnosed with the injury over the weekend, is expected to have surgery this week. I'm going to get into that with Jalen in a moment. I'm also going to get into this. Russell Westbrook. We opened the hour with it. Now stands alone in the record books with his 182nd triple-double coming last night against the Hawks. He moves past Oscar Robertson in the history books. He's the all-time leader in that category. Wizards wound up losing that game by 1. And then another 30-plus point performance for Steph Curry. The Warriors needed every moment of it. His late three with 14 seconds left gave them a win over the West-leading Utah Jazz. Steph would finish with 36. And so for insight into all of these matters, we bring in the star of NBA Countdown, the star of Jalen and Jacoby, and just the most interesting Renaissance man in the world, the one and only Jalen Rose. And so, Jay, no one will go with me on my idea that Steph Curry should be the MVP because of all the things that he's bringing to the season. So let me just put it to you this way. Is he the best show in the sport? Is he the best thing the NBA has going for it this year?
He is. And it's not just this year, Greeny. It's when the Golden State Warriors started winning championships. And when you start talking about being a show, that means that you're able to attract multiple audiences. And how do you do that? Being a baby-faced assassin. And for Steph Curry, for public consumption, we get a chance to see him be a son, a husband, a father, a brother, a dad. He's likable. And also, he's a smaller guy. He doesn't play with a frown on his face like a Russell Westbrook. He's not flexing to the cameras and mean mugging. He has an infectious smile. And you know what else he has? Unlimited range. And what does everybody do when they first walk into a basketball gym? They don't get into a defensive stance. They shoot the ball. And then they shoot it from as far as they can. And Steph Curry is the first person that we've seen that can shoot it off the dribble, between the legs, crossover, behind the back, with accuracy. And also, Steph Curry is a volume scorer. Look at the kind of numbers he's been putting up, high 40s in 20 minutes. He does deserve to be in the top handful of players for the MVP conversation, Greeny. And yes, he is the best show in the NBA, but he's not the favorite for the MVP because his team is involved in the play-in for the NBA.
That's correct. And they may very well wind up playing LeBron and the Lakers. Give me a sense of that scenario. Lakers versus Steph and the Warriors in the play in a one-game single elimination scenario.
I don't know if Adam Silver drinks coffee, but if he does, he needs to have an extra cup of caffeine today. Because this is why this idea was brilliant to have a play-in. And by the way, Greeny, since doing this show with you since the beginning of time, since back in the day when we were doing 4-hour hits, you know 2 words I hate in the NBA are not words you're hearing right now. Load management. Mm-hmm. Are you hearing load management? No, because the 3, 4, 5 teams want to avoid being where the 6 team is because they don't want to be 7 through 10 and be involved in the play-in. And look at the names that are involved in it. LeBron, AD, Steph, John Morant. In the Eastern Conference, LaMelo Ball, Russell Westbrook. All of these players and teams are involved in the play-in. Storied brands, Los Angeles Lakers, Boston Celtics. They're involved in the play-in. We don't even have to talk about the top teams just yet. We're not talking about the Suns, the Jazz, the Clippers. We don't necessarily have to talk about the Nets, the Bucks, and Philadelphia. We're still focused on the play-in. That's the beauty of the idea.
I completely agree. I wanted to ask you about another team that is going to be involved in that scenario. When we started the show together, you and I, sitting right where I am right now, we were talking about the Boston Celtics as the team of the future, the team of the future. All of a sudden, they feel like the team of the past, and they never had a present. So my question to you is, where do we assign the blame, if that's the right way to look at it, for what feels like a team that has fallen short in Boston?
I'm going to start first with Danny Ainge, because when we started this show and we were having a series where Jason Tatum was out there balling and Markelle Fultz was playing for Philadelphia getting DNPs, that means that you won the deal. And then the next year, you get Jalen Brown in the lottery, and he becomes an all-NBA performer. At that point, the Boston Celtics had their chance to cash their chips in the middle of the table and go get an all-NBA performer. They gambled on Kyrie Irving, and they lost. You remember when Kyrie said he was going to stay with the team? Well, he left. And ever since he left, now you're trying to replace Isaiah Thomas's productivity from a few years ago. So then you got it with Kyrie, and then all of a sudden you trade for Kemba Walker. And when you trade for him, he was all NBA. But this year he dealt with some injuries, and he wasn't an all-star. So now you're reaching now. You're going after Fournier. You're trying to go after bigs in the draft. They continue to strike out on bigs in the draft also. The Celtics haven't fortified their position at the 5 spot. So now you have Tatum, you have Brown, all NBA performers. You have some good pieces in Smart and Kemba Walker. But for a team that made the conference finals 3, I guess, of the last 4 or 5 years, and now you watch the Nets ascend. You watch Joel Embiid become an MVP candidate. You watch the Bucks and Giannis win back-to-back MVPs. And then the Raptors go on and win the championship. And then the Heat get Jimmy Butler, and they win the East. And now all of a sudden you in the play-in? I think the fall guy will be no one. Danny Ainge will be back. Brad Stevens, we were also arguing, was he one of the best coaches in the NBA?
Yeah.
Remember that? Now we can argue, is he one of the top coaches in the East? When you get a chance, think about the top coaches in the Eastern Conference. And I love Brad. You know, we have Indiana ties, but he deserves the level of criticism that most coaches deserve when they have 2 all-stars on the team. See, we're appreciating the Knicks this year and the Hawks this year because they're playing hard every night. And you know what else? Because they're better than teams like the Celtics, who had 2 all-stars this year.
Yeah, huge disappointment. Let me get one quick thought from you here. I just have a minute. But on Russell Westbrook, he breaks the record for three-pointers. He is, we've used the word polarizing a lot today. People have such different opinions on him. How do you put in perspective Russell Westbrook today?
So I'm going to tell you what made Russell Westbrook so polarizing. I hear so many people talking about his ability in this topic, but it's more than just his game. Here's the thing that happened with Russell. He averaged 9 points when he was in college. Just think about that. At UCLA, Russell Westbrook in 2 or 3 seasons, averaged 9 points. Okay, so now you get to the league and you play with Kevin Durant and you play with James Harden. Y'all make it to the finals. I remember singing For You, Greeny. They may be young, but they're ready. And they made it to the finals. And that year, people were already criticizing Russell Westbrook's game because they felt like he didn't defer to KD enough. Why don't you just fall in your lane and allow KD to be Batman? Why don't you just be Robin? And then all of a sudden, Harden leaves, KD becomes an MVP, but yet Russell still's leading the team in shot attempts. And a lot of people were upset at that. And then all of a sudden, the moment of truth happened. They were up 3-1 and they lost to the Golden State Warriors. KD leaves. As soon as he leaves, not only did he, via burner accounts and some of the lists that he's made up, slander Russ, but also the media did. We blamed Russ for KD leaving, and we said KD would never win a championship